Okay, in this video we're going to look at installing a brake vacuum pump. We put a 383 stroker in the 61 Impala, and it has a more than a mild cam in it. The problem now is that because of the cam and the size of this engine, it doesn't produce enough vacuum for the brake system, so the brakes are a bit soft. So that being the case, we're going to be adding a vacuum pump to boost the amount of vacuum, which right now is around 9 to around 20 inches. So let's get started. Okay, so today we got our vacuum pump to help us boost our brake vacuum. So this is what it came with: a nice amount of hose, little small diagram there, power cable with the fuse on it. Here's the pump, and screws with some rubber washers to help prevent vibration. But this pump is, I've already plugged it in to 12 volts, and it's actually pretty quiet, and it doesn't vibrate a whole lot, so that's a good thing. And then I'm going to hook up a T here. So I'm going to use the current vacuum coming out of the manifold, and then I'm going to put the pump onto that T as well. So it'll pump the 25 inches or so that the pump puts out. And if the pump ever fails, or what have you, I still have the 9 inches coming from the manifold, which is what I have right now. And I can still brake, it's just that the brakes are soft. So in place of this T in the check valve, I got this thing that already has a T in the check valve already built in. So that's a nice little thing. And yeah, so I'm going to, these are sheet metal screws, self-drilling, but I'm still going to drill a small pilot hole just to make sure that all the holes are aligned. So I measured the back here where the holes are, and yeah, let's see what I did with the car. Okay, so because this thing didn't vibrate a whole lot, and I'm pretty confident it's not going to make a whole lot of noise, and even if it makes a little noise, the engine noise will drown it out. I've drilled the holes here on the back of the firewall, and that's what I'm going to mount it. This is an Impala with a huge amount of room. The Camaro, I have it mounted here up front, just behind the radiator. But on this one, I'm going to mount it here on the firewall. It gives me easy access to the 12 volts that I'm going to put through that grommet to the left there. And I'll grab that from the fuse box, and then easy access to the brake booster. And yeah, I think this is pretty much the best place for me. Everybody has a different opinion of where they want to put it, but this is where I'm putting mine. All right, so stay tuned. Okay, so I got the vacuum pump already bolted on here. When you bolt on self-drilling sheet metal screws, so to speak, make sure that you don't over-tighten, because if you over-tighten, you're screwed. You'll wipe out the threads. The threads are very thin. So anyways, so got that in place. The next thing we're going to do is put the hose on, and then the electric, hook up the electric to the fuse box. One word of warning, well, a note to you. This came with vacuum hose already, but if you have a vacuum pump that didn't come with a vacuum hose, or you're buying a vacuum hose to go to a canister or whatever, make sure you buy vacuum hose. That's important, because a lot of folks make the mistake of buying fuel hose, and the inner walls are a little bit different. So make sure you buy vacuum hose. Otherwise, if you buy fuel hose, you're going to have a bit of a little problem later on, most likely, if you're not careful. All right. So there's your tip for the day. Let's get this thing all hooked up, and I think we're ready to test it out. Okay, so got the wiring set up for the vacuum pump here. Basically, there was already a wire coming in through a grommet, so I kind of paired it up with that. That way I didn't have to drill another hole. So that's the positive. There's the fuse. And then the ground I'm taking from the firewall here, because it was convenient. There was already a screw there. So basically put in a spade plug here, or spade connector here, and made sure that it, with the multimeter, that it tested positive, or there was continuity between that and ground. And there is. So got this plug ready to go. And here's the plug to the vacuum. So I just have to connect the hose now from the vacuum pump to the booster. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the T between the pump, the vacuum pump, and the booster. And I'm going to take this out and I'm going to put a check valve between the manifold here and the booster. So that way, if this ever fails, I still have the manifold producing a vacuum that still gives me a little bit of braking, basically what I have now. Okay, so let's take a look at how I wired this up inside the car. So the red wire is coming inside, it's going to go to my fuse box. And it has to be connected to a circuit that is not always on, that's only on when the ignition is on. So I come here to my fuse box, and I find in the fuse box that there's an accessory tab in the bottom. Well, when I tested that, I found that that's always hot. So not really connected to the accessory. So the best that I found is connecting it here to the brake tab that's right here, and that only comes on. It's not really the brake lights. It's labeled as such, but that only comes on when the ignition is on. And that comes to this fuse right here. This fuse right here is 10 amps. I need 15 for that pump. So I'm going to be replacing that 10 amp fuse with a 15 amp fuse, since I'm taking the power from that fuse right there. And yeah, so I'm going to do that right now, replace the fuse, and then we'll be ready to put the hose on and test this out, see if it works. All right, so stay tuned. Okay, just want to make sure that with the car off, there's no power coming to this. And I'm getting 0 volts. So then let's go put it in accessory mode. And actually this is not an accessory mode, it's more an ignition mode. And now we're getting 12 volts. Okay, so that shows that when the car is off, this is not going to be running the vacuum pump, which is what we want. And when the car is on, there's 12 volts going to the vacuum pump. And the way the vacuum pump works is it'll build up to 20 pounds. I don't know if it's pounds, it's HG or whatever, of vacuum. And when it reaches that, the pump shuts itself off. So that's how that works. Okay, so let's go ahead and connect the hoses now. And yeah, stay tuned. I'll show you how that works. Okay, so for the hose, we have vacuum hose. Make sure, again, I think I pointed this out before, make sure if you do this, you get vacuum line hose, not fuel line hose, because a lot of folks pass fuel line hose off for vacuum hose and it's not the same. The inner wall is different, a little bit different. So you want to make sure you have vacuum hose. This will crimp the hose onto the vacuum pump. And then a lot of folks use a T between the booster and the vacuum pump, and then they put a check valve down the line there towards the manifold. So I bought this, basically does the same thing. Here's the T on the right hand side, and then this side goes to the manifold. So this has kind of like the T and the check valve already built in. So that's what we're going to hook up. Okay, so that side goes to the manifold, this side to the manifold, and this goes to the pump, and that's going to go to the brake booster. All right, so let's get this thing going. Be right back. Okay, so I cut the hose to length and connected the T connector. So the hose in the back comes around behind the brake booster, and it goes straight to the vacuum pump. And that's that part underneath. And the reason there's a clamp there, the vacuum pump doesn't have little ridges on it. It's just a smooth connector, or just a smooth intake or outtake, however you want to call it. So that's why you need that little crimper. And then another hose goes to the booster. So there's what the T is. So the vacuum pump goes straight to the booster. And then the other part of the check valve goes to the manifold. Actually, it goes to the carburetor. The carburetor is what's been giving this vacuum. So that's what we got. So at this point, it's just a matter of turning the car on and hearing the vacuum pump work. It's magic. Load it up with vacuum, and then the booster should, or the vacuum pump should stop pumping. So let's see if that happens. All right, stay tuned. Okay, so here we are inside the car. I'm going to put this in accessory mode. Okay, I can hear the pump going. That's the sound of the pump. It's a little loud only because the car isn't on. When the car is on, you're not going to really hear it. So it should stop. That little noise should stop after it fills the vacuum booster, which it did. Awesome. And that tells me I don't have a vacuum leak, because if it stayed on constantly, that means you got a vacuum leak. All right, so I'm pressing the brake right now, and it already feels a lot tighter, a lot nicer. So, and let's see that noise, because it's right on the firewall. I took my foot off the brake and it stopped like it should. Mounting the vacuum pump on the firewall, while it might make a little bit of noise when the car is off, it certainly doesn't make any significant noise to overcome when the car is on. So, all right, I think that'll pretty much do it then. All right, so there you have it. We have a pretty non-mellow cam in this 383 stroker, and so basically it reduced the amount of vacuum that the brake booster would have, so my brakes are really soft. So putting in that vacuum pump allows it to push more vacuum or pull more vacuum into the brake booster, and now instead of having around 10 pounds HG, whatever you want to call it, I have 20. And that's really what you want to be at. So the brakes are really good now. If this ever fails, I got the T in there, so it'll still pull vacuum from the manifold. So I'll still have some soft brakes at least. At least I won't have failed brakes. And yeah, so there you go. I think we can call this a wrap. I hope you got something out of this. I hope you learned from any mistakes I may have made. And if you have any constructive criticism or anything that people can learn from, please go ahead, put them in the comments. Totally welcome them. All right. There's some links in there for the vacuum pump that I used, any other parts that I might have used. Look in the description. I don't monetize and I don't make money off of any links, so it's not. I'm not biased in any way. All right. So like I always say, live life to the fullest. Life is short, man. You know what? Enjoy it. All right. Peace out.